Welcome to Christmas. Welcome to the History Lord channel. You join me today, not in London, but in a studio, because we're doing a few videos about Christmas. So we thought we'd come into a Christmassy type studio and do those videos for you. Today, because 2020 marks the 75th anniversary of the end of the Second World War, we thought we'd look back and see what Christmas was like during and just after the Second World War. Today, Christmas is a commercial success for most companies, but back in the war times, there was still rationing. And even for years after the war, there was rationing of many, many things. So Christmas back in the 1940s and early 50s was more of a make-do-amend type of affair. Everyday things like bacon, sugar, butter were all rationed, and so it really was a make-do-amend type thing. People with gardens were encouraged to grow their own vegetables and supplement their food in that way. Blackout was also a problem during the war. No Christmas lights, for example. So those traditions were ceased since 1939 to 1945. So in 1945, Christmas lights started to re-emerge, although not that many. They were still rather expensive. Companies like Woolworths actually started manufacturing trinkets and baubles again, but again they were still rather expensive, so most people had their decorations made out of painted newspaper and they let the children make them themselves. But the wartime government even tried to help out with the festivities. They actually came up with a few ideas to make Christmas more sparkly. The Ministry of Food had tips to make simple decorations even more festive. They actually said, and I quote, "A Christmassy sparkle is easy to add to sprigs of holly or evergreens for use on puddings. Dip your greenery in a strong solution of Epsom salts. When it dries, it will look beautifully frosted." I think we could probably do that today, couldn't we? Might be cheaper than buying some tinsel. Presents were often homemade. Indeed, hats and scarves were usually very appropriate presents, and they were sometimes made by unravelling woolen jumpers that people have outgrown. And they were, as I say, it was make, do and mend. The Christmas dinner became a bit of a chore as well, but also a triumph and of ingenuity. They came up with wonderful ideas like mock turkey, or murky as they called it. And that was sausage meat and breadcrumbs and various other vegetables rolled into the shape of a turkey and then baked and carved. They also came up with vegetables you had homegrown and things like that. Puddings, you wouldn't have had too many puddings. Dried fruit was very scarce as well, so they were a very height of luxury if you had one of those. If you lived in certain areas, you would join a pig club, which means you would buy a portion of a pig that would be slaughtered at Christmas. During the war, if you were in a pig club, half of the pig went to the government, and that went towards rations, and the other half went to the pig club. Some people kept chickens in their own gardens, and they were used for the Christmas meal as well. If you were lucky, sometimes you could even find a goose. Entertainment was back on the menu as well, and most people wanted to go and see films at the cinema without the thought of a bomb dropping on them or an air raid in the middle of the film and you had to evacuate. The most popular songs as well, still one of Bing Crosby's favourites from the 1942 movie Holiday Inn was White Christmas. Holiday Inn was a movie with Fred Astaire and Bing Crosby. Most people think that White Christmas came from the film White Christmas, but that was 1954, I believe, so 12 years after Irving Berlin originally released the song. Pantomimes were back in as well, and many people flocked to the theatre to see the stars of the day tread the boards on pantomime. And I think we're going to do a video about pantomime next week, so stay tuned for that. So by the end of 1945, with war at an end, the austerity still continued, but Christmas was a more happy affair. They knew that loved ones were indeed coming home eventually when the demob was happening, and so families were reunited. It's a far cry from 2020, but also a good comparison. 2020 has been a rather strange year for everyone, and I do believe that this year families have been drifting apart. But thanks to new technology, they can keep in touch with Zoom and Teams calls and things like that. And only wishes for me, from myself and the two Jameses behind the camera, to wish you all a very happy Christmas. If you have enjoyed the video, then please do go to historylord.co.uk and see about one of my walking tours of London. If you want to see what the two Jameses do behind the camera, there's links below to their YouTube channels as well. Thank you for watching. We'll see you very soon. Take care.